Hi friends, welcome to a new video over here at the Elinim channel. Today's a special one because we're going to be doing a sort of riff on the day in the life, day in my journal situation. It's actually a couple of days, so it's going to be, the first section is going to be on Sunday, and then the second section will be on Monday. And I think it's probably two of the best days to show you the most amount of content because I am closing up for the month to prepare for the flip through that I'll be recording for you guys. So something about this video is that I will be putting timestamps so that you can see when each section is taking place. I did end up cutting the footage to bring this down because the original footage for both days was about 2 hours long. Now, if you are interested in that raw footage with minimal cuts, like only cutting any sections where maybe I'm making a lot of background noise or clearing my throat, that is going to be posted on Patreon as a bonus video. So if you're interested in a 2-hour journal with me where there are no cuts and it's just me journaling, there is no talking in the raw footage, so I will probably provide a suggested playlist to play over it. It's just the ASMR. But if you're interested in that, that will be on Patreon. And once it is live, I will link it down below. But for this video, I did do cuts to make it more interesting, and I just want you to get a glimpse of what I do. I do try to have like a routine with journaling, especially when it's like the closeout for the month. So on Sunday, this Sunday, I was doing the closeout for February, which involves me going into my pixel trackers in the media journal. I do my monthly fan arts. I do the completed media covers, the cover page if I have to make one, and that happens in the media journal. In the tan, I do pictures in the monthly, and I decided actually that I'm going to be doing a weather calendex in the tan. So I'm going to be using the calendex rather in the tan to track weather. So that was something that I wrote down for my closeout as well. And then in the Hobonichi cousin, I try to catch up as well on any spreads that I need to catch up on. Because I started the Hobonichi cousin in February, like mid-February, I still have a lot of catching up to do for January and February, but I am working on that system and making sure that I can be on top of it because one of my major goals this year is to not have a huge backlog and to try and be consistent every single week. So I am trying to do like routines when it comes to the weekly routine, the daily routine, and the monthly routine of these journals. It's one of the reasons why I decided that I wanted to do monthly flip throughs to make sure I can kind of hold myself accountable because journaling is one of the ways that I kind of stay sane. It's a hobby, but it's also a practice in presence and a self-care practice in and of itself. So I want to make sure that I'm on top of it as much as possible. Speaking about it being on top of it as much as possible, we will go later on into the Monday section. And in that section, you'll see what I do on Mondays, which is how I keep up to date as much as I can. It's the day that I print out all my images. And on Tuesday's video is going to be a Tuesday tip where I go through my kind of picture organizing methods and how I print them out, set them up on Affinity, and then get them through my cutting machine. So that's a video that's going to be coming out as Tuesday tips, hopefully the Tuesday after this video releases, but if not, it's definitely going to be coming soon. I already have the footage, I just have to actually set up the voiceover. Okay, so to give a little context on what I've been doing, in the beginning I was working in my weeks and essentially I was filling up the yearly pixel tracker, which is something that I have been doing since 2022 for almost every single year since then. And it's essentially two different pixel trackers. A lot of people used to use these for like mood so that you could track through little colors throughout the year in pixels. But I do it for media, of course, because it's in my media journal. And essentially, there's one side that tackles books, whether that's physical, audiobook, or ebook. And then the other side tackles what I watch, so TV shows, movies, or both. In the case of what I'm doing here in the Hobonichi, at the end of the month, as part of my closeout, I will do this. I will go in my weeks and see what series I've watched or any books that I've taken, basically any media that takes me more than a day to complete. I will use this tracker to signify. And so circles are TV shows, the little star signs are manhwa, and the squares that are more rectangles, they're more rectangles than anything. That's books, and I will fill in those books if it is a media that I've completed. Otherwise, it remains like filled in. It's just the lines. And I really like that tracker. I think it's one of my favorite ones right now that I'm doing. It's really cool to kind of see all the colors and be able to play with my fountain pen inks. That's one of the things that I do then. And now we've already reached Monday. So those were the two things that I did on Sunday. And on Monday, again, it's one of like the most eventful days because I print out all of my images and I get them all cut so that it's ready for me to paste into my journals. And I will try to paste them in even if I don't have time to actually write through, just so that it's there and ready for me. So in the morning, I was getting all of the images prepped and cut, and that's what the Tuesday tips video is going to showcase. So expect that in a couple of days. And as you can see here, these are all of the images that I printed out, and these are all of the images for all of the journals, like not just one specifically. And after I get them cut in the silhouette, I go ahead and divide them up and get them into little stacks ready for me to stick into any specific journal. So that's kind of like what I'm doing right now. I think I'm going to start with putting the media covers in the Hobonichi weeks. So I'm going to go ahead and reminiscing with how I used to do my videos. I'm going to add a musical break and then I will come back to talk a little bit more once the song ends. So I'll catch you at the other side of the musical break. Hello, hello. So we are back and we are moving on from the Hobonichi weeks to the tan. That's the next one that I started working on Monday. And there's no really rhyme or reason as to which one I start off first. It's just a matter of me kind of sticking things down. Something that you'll notice in these clips, even though I cut it here, you can definitely see it very well in the one that's no cuts, in that I am trying really hard not to overthink the placement of some of these images. In the case of what I'm doing here in the tan, something I decided after watching another Japanese creator on here. She did this in her Hobonichi weeks. She would print out the images of the photos that she posted on Instagram and she would put it in her monthly. And I was flabbergasted. My brain exploded. I loved that idea. And so I decided to do that for February's closeout. I had already started using the tan for something else, the monthly. So I couldn't do it fully because I had already written in, but I am definitely doing that for March. So I'm excited about that. And then now we have moved on to the cousin, because in the tan there was no other images. I don't really use the tan for image heavy journaling. It's more for daily logging at this point. But we have moved to the commonplace, to the Hobonichi cousin, which is where most of the images are going to go. So most of the images are going to be between the Hobonichi cousin and the hours journal, the hours journal being my joy journal. So the grand majority of the images that you're seeing here splayed out in front is for either the cousin or that our studio journal, which we'll get to in a second. And so, like I mentioned earlier, I'm still working on a backlog in the Hobonichi cousin since I started it around mid-February, and I am still kind of finding my groove as well because it's a different style of journaling than I have done before. But it is something that I've been wanting to do, so it's not that I am struggling necessarily. I'm just trying to figure out my groove with it. I think that a lot of us could probably, or a lot of you could probably relate to when you get a new journal, whether that's a new journal altogether or when we're starting the year off in our new journals, that you have like a bit of time where you're trying to get your footing and kind of, I don't know, get acquainted with your journal and figure out what you like doing. And a lot of the systems that I'm using this year are heavily influenced by decisions and styles that I used last year. And so it wasn't necessarily as difficult or as different, even like using the tan for daily journaling. It's very similar to what I was doing, the style that I was doing in the TN, even if it's a different journal. But this style of journaling that I'm doing in the Hobonichi cousin now is completely different from anything that I've done before, at least in the last couple of years. So I'm still getting my groove or still finding my groove. Me and sayings. Still finding my groove, trying to figure out, what the best timing for journaling is. I think I talked a little bit about this in the setup video, that always kind of battling the stream of consciousness versus the memory keeping aspect of commonplacing for me. And so, like, for example, with the joy journal, it's very easy for me because I know, okay, Mondays I'm printing out my images and I'm going to get this set up every Monday, right? And I know with my daily logging that I am going into that as I need to during the day. There's not a lot of overthinking when it comes to that. With my media journal, I know that I'm logging something specific that already happened. It's not anything much more than that. But with the commonplace, I have to think about like timing, right? Because I'm using images, and I think that that's what makes it a little more complicated for me always, is the use of photos and how do I place them. It's one of the reasons why I used to design my spreads for media journaling in my iPad first and then print them out so that I knew exactly where things were going to go, what the sizings of the things were going to be. But I'm not doing that now. I'm trying to have it be as organic as possible. But that brings with it its own challenges. And so, yeah, I'm still in the experimental side of the Hobonichi cousin as a commonplace, and I am enjoying it, but I am working off of a backlog and still finding my footing, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. And during the flip through, I'll talk a bit more about what I'm actually journaling about in the this previous week's journaling update number 46. I went heavy into the topics that have been interesting me in the past couple of months, but I will briefly speak about it as well during the monthly flip through. And yeah, I'm excited to kind of continue experimenting in this journal and seeing, because it's capturing the things that I'm interested in, right? The topics and the shows that I'm watching, and I'm having a lot of fun with this style. I'm excited. Even though I'm struggling a little bit still with kind of figuring out how I want it to exist within my system. I'm happy that it is in my system, if that makes sense. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and put another musical break now because I feel like I've yapped enough, and I will catch you at the flip side. So with the Hour Studio Journal, as you can see, I try to be pretty quick with my decision making because it's one of those situations where you can just spend so long trying to figure out the right placement that you just it takes too long. And I'm all about long journaling sessions. Honestly, an average journaling session will take me about 45 minutes, like a good one. But I don't want to spend all of that time just trying to figure out placement. And with the Hour Journal specifically, I always start off with putting down the photos. That's, I think, something that has been the case for the past couple of weeks. I put down the photos first, and then after, I'll go in and add my titles and my writing and all that jazz. And usually I'll do it together, but this time around on this day, I ended up just pasting in the photos and I ended up working on the titles and the captions. I think on Friday, yeah, because it wasn't even ready on Thursday, which is when I do my journaling updates, my weekly flip throughs on Patreon. Here you can see we've moved on to another journaling session for Monday, and I received a package, my Patreon mail from Flesh PNG. So here I am showing you my junk journal, which I started recently, and I'm also cutting out the stamps. I always cut out the stamps from the envelopes and paste them into another one of my journals. So that's what I'm doing here. You can see that there are still a bunch of images that I printed out and didn't get to stick in. But I will get to that later on. On Monday, it was interesting because I didn't end up doing pretty much any daily logging in the tan. I ended up doing a lot of gluing in, mostly because I wanted to not have that mess of images on my desk, but also I guess that's just what the vibes were that day. I want to preface, well, I guess preface at this point is probably the wrong word because we're 20 minutes into the video. But this is just a day in my journal. This is not every day in my journals, right? Like even Mondays sometimes look different. Like for the most part on Mondays, usually what I try to do every Monday is work in the hours journal, but that's pretty much the only expectation that I have for myself. Now that I added the Hobonichi to the system, I do also want to get some like weekly journaling habits in because I don't want to end up with a huge backlog. I really dislike having to back journal. I'd rather be as current as possible. And like I mentioned, that's my really big goal for the year. So of course I have to figure out the timing for the Hobonichi, but really my only expectation for Mondays wholeheartedly is to at least paste in the images for the hours journal, get those printed out and set in there so that I don't go behind. And it's been working really really well, which is why I'm pretty confident that I'll also be able to find my groove with the Hobonichi cousin. But yeah, this is the journal. It's the one that I'm using for the long form journaling. This is the one where I glue in all of my postage stamps from my Patreon mail that I receive. It's a cute little collage. I kind of wish it was in another journal at this point because I haven't been in this long form journaling insert for a while. And in fact, I'm thinking about possibly changing the purpose of it into a more of like an art sketchbook type situation, but we shall see. I haven't concretely decided that yet. It's just that I've realized that I prefer long form journaling in a more squarish format than a TN, which is longer. But we shall see. This is my little junk journal, and I was running out of time, so I just put in those little scraps in the back and I will glue them in later. And here I am doing some daily journaling. And as you can see, I'm just getting to the first check-in in the daily log at this point. So yeah, not a lot of daily journaling this day, which is fine. This journal is really just about like whenever I need to check in, I have a space to do that. It's not something that I am forcing myself to go into unless I need to. It's really stream of consciousness, right? Like everything else, every other journal really is more of a memory keeping type thing. And this is more of like my daily log, daily presence, self-care practice type journal, right? It's more a place for me to be able to get things out of my head if I need to. And it is actually evolving though. In March, I'm experimenting with a couple of different things inspired by some conversations that I've had with Mina from over at Mina Bomelo, which by the way, she's the one who requested this video. So you guys say thank you to Mina. And we moved into the next journaling session, which the next ones I believe are all in the Hobonichi cousin. The weekly verticals I'm using as a sort of media journaling as well. That's more time-based versus the media log in the weeks, which is more of like the things that I completed each day. And here it's more of like a timing thing. I'm putting my first songs in here instead, and then whenever, the timing. How many times can I say timing? But I had those images, like I mentioned, that I needed to paste in. So I think that's probably why I spent a lot more time in the cousin this day than usual. Um, and yeah, here I am just backlogging some of the timing and things of media that I was consuming the day before, Sunday, to close out the week. And yeah, then we'll go into the daily pages where I will glue in a few more pages and actually do some writing, which is cool. So I will go ahead and put some more music. I don't think I have anything else to say, maybe? I don't think so. I think that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about. I think I'm gonna make a day in my journals every, maybe not every month, but every other month. I do like it, and I have been thinking more and more about like journaling routines and also like morning journaling, daily journaling, and then night journaling. It's something that's been on my mind, especially after watching a video by a creator. I was watching a video of hers and she was going through her daily journaling routine, and my brain just, like as I say, it imploded. I was so inspired by her daily journaling system. And so if you're interested in that, because I have been working on a possible routine, if you're interested in more details about like daily journaling routines that I am trying to be consistent throughout, then let me know and I will make a video on that. Oh, and actually, before I go, so here I'm doing a little mood board. I talk about this again in the Patreon weekly update, and of course, it will come up in the flip through. But it's like a little mood board of a book that I read. Something that I've been doing for many years on Pinterest. Whenever I finish a book or a show or a movie, I will create little mood boards on Pinterest for that piece of media, and I figured I could glue those into my commonplace. So that's what I'm doing. And the first one that I did it for was Lakewood. It caused me a lot of grief, as you can see, lots of back and forth. But ultimately, I did like how it came out. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and leave my voice here, and the rest will be music. Thank you so much for watching. And if you have any questions, as always, let me know. If you're interested in more daily logging after this one, I will link another, not daily logging, another day in my journals. There is another day in my journals that I have recorded a few months back. So if you're interested in that, I will leave it linked at the end in the cards. You can go ahead and check that out if you want to look at another day in my journals. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you later.